All right, I've started the process of stuffing. I'm going to be getting my turkey ready pretty soon. Now, this is what my mother, my grandmother, all of them used to do. Whenever they did their turkey, they would take like the neck, the liver, all of that stuff that's inside. They would boil it down to make the broth out of it. And then they would take the meat, chop it up, you know, clean the meat off the turkey neck and the liver, everything was chopped up real fine, and it was added to the stuffing before it was cooked. So that's what I'm going to do. So this video is going to be kind of off and on all day because I got a lot to do today. Okay, here I am tearing up the cornbread that I made and let it set out overnight to cool and harden. And then I've already got my, I took some slices of white bread, put them in the oven, and got them really dry. And I let them set out overnight, and I got them crumbled up in here. So this is the beginning of the stuffing. All right, now I'm gonna add couple of teaspoons of my homemade poultry seasoning, and I'm just going to do a couple, and that way once I get down through it, get my broth done, get the onions, celery, all that done, I can taste it as I go and adjust the taste of it as I go. Alright, I got a lid on it. We're going to let the onions and celery cook down, and then we'll get this put together. And I learned how to make this stuffing by watching my mother and my grandmother when I was a kid. That was the one thing my mother loved to do, was make the stuffing. And the recipe that we use, I think, is just about as old as the Ozark Hills herself, and it always turned out so good. And I never could understand when I was a kid why Mom always put the heart and the liver and the gizzard, and she'd cook the neck bone and peel the meat off from it, and she'd add that to the stuffing, and man, it was always so good. And you didn't waste anything. All right, so we ended up some really nice turkey broth, and that was from boiling the neck that come out of the turkey, the gizzard, the heart, and the liver. All right, then once they were cooked up to soft, I put them in the food processor and I grind up the meat. I stripped all the meat off the neck. I put the liver, the heart, everything in the food processor, ground it up, and it will get added to the stuffing. That way I'm not wasting anything. All right, so I'm going to use a loaf pan, and it is the Pampered Chef Family Heritage Collection. It's kind of like a terracotta type, but anyway, that's what I'm going to use. I love that dish. All right, so I have my cornbread and my dried bread here, and I'm going to add the meat that I chopped up. And yes, my hands are clean. They've been washed probably 50,000 times just today. 2 scrambled eggs. Then to that, I'm going to add the onions and celery that we cooked. That smells so good, I could eat that by itself. Let's get that mixed in. I always make extra stuffing because I can eat this stuff for every meal just about. That's why I try not to make it too much. We're going to start adding the turkey broth. I'm just going to start with about a cupful to make sure it gets mixed really well, because the juice isn't hot anymore. Warm but not hot. And you always want this a little more moist than dry, because when you're baking it, it's going to dry out some. You have to remember that. So always make it a little more moist than you intend. All right. Now, we're going to get as much in our pan as we can get in there. And the rest I'll put up for, well, if there's any left. All right, let's get it all packed in our pan. We're going to slide this in the oven. I've got the oven set, I think it was 375, and I'm just going to keep it in there until the top browns really well. So here we go. All right, let's get it out of the oven. There it is. Now, what I'll do with this, I got to let it cool down. Man, that looks so good. I'll let it cool down, then I'll take I packed it in there, so when it was done, I could flip it and slice it like a loaf. Woo, it's going to be good, but I think it might be too crumbly. I think that's exactly what's going to happen, is it's going to crumble. Thank you guys very much for watching.